Hello friends, we are learning ASP.NET programming using HTML, and now we are going to learn HTML form elements. Very important is an HTML language which has the long form of hypertext manipulation language. The HTML has a static page which can be developed for getting a good information on the website with the help of browser. We can just publish any web page by using HTML language. Here is in the ASP we are learning the particularly dynamic web pages. In the ASP.NET we are going to create the web-based application using number of things and which are helpful for developing the web application. One of the important thing here to embed any of the ASP.NET code in the HTML. But in HTML we have to learn the form tag where this form will be get displayed on the web browser and user can input in that form. The usage of form tag is also very important. How we can say the form tag is used to create an HTML form for user input. Now we see that HTML is developed for static web page, but here if we insert the form tag in HTML, this particular web page will be going to be a dynamic. So the form element and the form tag, it will contain one or more elements. What are those elements? Here is the list of all these elements, but at the other side we have to see the form tag, how it will be get displayed on the HTML. The form tag has opening, that is beginning of form tag is done by using this particular form element. The element is the form beginning, and then number of form elements we can insert in between of form and end form, the slash before the form which will ended the form tag. Now the form tag is a particularly used for giving the user input from the keyboard, and the number of elements are actually used in the form. These number of elements are input, label, then select, text area, button, field set, legend, data list, output, option, and opt group. This number of form tag elements will be used to develop the form on the screen or on the browser. Let us see the form element example. What is this example? An HTML form with two input fields and one submit button. This is very important that HTML form we are going to develop here. Now, this is the form tag. The firstly form tag is developed. In the form tag, the highlighted section is given as the attributes of the form. What are those attributes? The first attribute we have mentioned here is action. Action is equal to /action underscore page dot php. That is action underscore php dot php. This file is to be run. The action to be taken that this .php file will be run when this form will be get appeared on the browser. And the method, that is also one of the attribute. The method is equal to get. There are two methods, that is get and post. We are learning get and post in our next sessions. But moreover, here we only see the particularly the method is equal to get. The next statement is given as a label. The label is also provided in the angular brackets. Now, every HTML tag is given in angular bracket and every tag is ended with this slash and that particular tag name. Now the label is given label for is equal to f name, which is given in double quotation, that is the first name. Now the first name colon is written as a label and the name of this label is f name, which is given in double quotation. The next very important form element is input. The input type is equal to text. What is this type? Type is a particularly an attribute. Is equal to text, which is given in double quotation. That is also the value of this type. The text is a particularly text material which are inputted from the user. Now, ID is also an attribute. The attribute of this text is f name, that is we have to give the first name and the name is equal to f name, that is also the attribute. Now at the last, two different singular tags are given, that is br. Very important is br is a singular tag which is breaking the line. There are two breaking lines and later on the another label, that is in the next line, label for l name is a last name and the last name is provided. The last name is provided on the screen. So that is only a label. Now the next form element is an input. Type is equal to text. So that type is a attribute. ID is also an attribute. It gives the L name, that is last name. The name of this element is L name, and again the BR and BR singular HTML element is given. HTML tag is given, that is the breaking of the line. At the last, input type is equal to submit. So what is this submit? Submit is a submit button and the value is one of the attribute of our submit button. Submit button has a value submit. So what is written in double quotation at the last submit is a button caption. So the caption will be a submit. Okay. So at the last, end form, that is a slash form, is given in angular bracket. So all of these are the form declarations and how the form will be acted on the browser is given. And then This will be shown as a HTML code above will be displayed in a browser. That is, first name is equal to, in a text box the first name will be taken, and in the second text box the last name is taken, and first name and last name which is shown here, those are the labels. At the last, the submit button is given so that it will be the first name and last name will be get submitted. Very important that in our last slide we have given the number of attributes with the form elements. What are these attributes with the form element? That is the action which is very important. Now there are number of attributes, that is access, accepts, character set, action, autocomplete, n type, method name, no validate, relation, and target. But very important three attributes are the action, the method, and the name, which are highlighted here with the yellow color. The action will give the value of URL. URL is a uniform resource locator that will specifies where to send the form data and when a form is submitted. The next is a method. Very important attribute is a method which will give the two values, that is get or post. Okay, then it will specify the HTTP method to use the sending of form data. So form data sending which will be used by the attribute method. So those attribute are having a get and post value. Next very important attribute is a name, and this is a compulsory element. This is a compulsory attribute given here. The name is given as a value text. So it will specify the name of the form. Now, this is very important. First element is an input element. This is the one of the most used form element in our form tag. This is an input element. The input element can be displayed in several ways depending on the type attribute. So very important in the input element is a type attributes. See here, for example, we have given the label for is equal to f name. That is, we have given the first name as a label and it will be ended. The label is ended here. And the next is a input. So highlighted is the input. By the yellow color, we have highlighted input element, and the type is a particularly attribute. The text is a value of that attribute. ID and name are specified here. What are the different types here? For example, the figure shows in the lower side, that is the type is equal to text. Type is equal to text. Type is equal to radio. So type of is equal to text, which will show and displays the single line text input field. So we have to input our values by using this text box. Then the input type radio is used for displaying a radio button, that is for selecting one of the many choices given in the radio button. The next is a type, that is a checkbox. This will display a checkbox. This will take the number of choices from the checkboxes. One or more choices you can adopt in the choices. The next is a submit button, and this type is very important. It will display the submit button for submitting the form. And the next uh, and very important is a button which will display the clickable button. So clickable button is a particularly, you can say this submit button is also clickable button. So but moreover, the different click buttons or whatever addition or anything button you can display on the browser, that will be given in the input element. What are the different input types are here listed at the right hand side, that there are different input types we can use in HTML. For example, that is input type button, then checkbox, we can use color, we can use date time, that will be shown as a local, then email, file, hidden, image, month, number, password, radio, range, reset, search, submit, telephone. This is very important, that is a text which is highlighted. So this is by default value is always text, then type, time and URL. These all are input type, that is a type is a particularly an attribute given in the input. Next is a label element. So we have already seen about this label element in our last example. So what is this? The label tag defines a label for many form elements, and the label element is useful for screen reader users because the screen reader will read out loud the label when the user focuses on the input element. The label element is also helpful for the users who have the difficulty for clicking very small regions of radio buttons or checkboxes or anything, the buttons given on the browser or on the form which is displayed on the browser, because when the user clicks the text within the label element, it will toggle the radio button or checkbox or even the drop down menu. So the for attribute in the label, very important is the for attribute in the label. We have already seen in the our last slide. This for attribute of the label tag should be equal to the ID attribute of the input element to bind them together. So for attribute will show the label name, mostly the label name, or you can say ID of that label. So label element is a very simple element in the form. Very important is also a select element. A select element is one of the element which is given in the form elements, that is the select element. At the right hand side, the particularly box shows the element which will define the drop down list. So drop down list we can show with the select element. So this is given with the example, that is the label for cars. You can say the label is given as a choose a car colon, and it will be ended with that label. Now this all portion to the next lines are given as a select element. So what is that? Select ID. ID is an attribute, that is a cars is a attribute, the value of that attribute. The name is also a cars, and the select has the option value, that is option value is a particularly the attribute value. For example, the value is given in double quotation Volvo. So Volvo is given in the option value, that is a Volvo. This will displayed on the screen. This will be displayed on the browsers. That is, for example, Saab. Next is a Fiat and Audi, but the values are actually inserted into the double quotation. So always option button is also ended with end option button, that is the slash option, and the select element is also ended with end select. Now we have just given here the example of this all form element as well as the select element. So this example shows here, the document HTML, very important that HTML document you can start with the HTML as a in the angular bracket, and it will be always ended with /HTML. And inside of that HTML and end HTML, we can write two sections, that is a head section and the body section. Two sections we can write. In the body section we can write anything, and that will be get displayed on the browser. Now this is H2 is an element, or you can say it is a tag in the HTML that will be shown as a heading. So heading is of 6 levels, that is H1 to H6. So the select element is a heading given here. Now in the head section, just we can see here that is a title. So what is this title? Select element of the form. This will be displayed at the upper side, that is on the status bar of this particularly the browser. Then next is a P tag, that is a paragraph tag. It will show the sentence that the select element defines a drop down list colon, and this drop down list is given here. Now the form tag or form is displayed here. The form tag is started on the form next, and the action is the attribute of the form. So that will be show the particularly it will access the PHP file which is known as action underscore PHP. Whatever the PHP file might be, but this will show the particularly the label and the select ID. That is, label will show the cars, so you can choose a car in the drop down list, and the drop down list will show the number of 4 different values of option value, that will be Volvo, Saab, Fiat and Audi cars. And at the last there is an input type, that is a submit button. So this submit button will take this drop down list value and it will be get submitted to the form element. So that will be the answer which will be rendering towards the form element. Okay, so this is the example of select element and overall example of HTML file where we have given the form and select, that is select element, form tag as well as the number of input and option values. Thank you very much.